Bilingual books. Either you love them or you hate them? Well, it's not that simple. Did you have bilingual books when growing up, or do you use them with your children? When it comes to bilingual books, parents and educators have different opinions and experiences. And if you want to find out how to use or when not to use bilingual books, follow until the end.
Welcome to Activities for Multilingual Families, a channel where we share ideas to help you foster your languages in a fun and compelling way. As the title of the video suggests, bilingual books are not just good or bad. It depends on who reads them and for what purpose. So to start with, I'm going to be talking about bilingual books for preschool and primary school and children, and Uta will carry on with preteens, teens, and adults. When my eldest was 7, we got our first bilingual book. It was Happiness Street by Elisavet Arkolaki, and when we opened the book, my son's reaction was priceless. He was amazed to see 2 of his languages present in the book. And I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was really like if he could see himself in the book. At home, we have many books in all our languages, but we only have a few bilingual books. And I would say that this is the most positive aspect of bilingual books. They reflect who our children are, and representation does matter. Having a book written in 2 our children's languages can have a very positive impact. I would also add that when the languages play a role or represent the main character, for example, if they are bilingual themselves, it is even more appealing. Now, let's think about how to use bilingual books. There are, of course, many ways to use them, and I'm going to focus on the few main ones. A book enables us to connect with our children. So if the book is in the language you generally use with your child, you can read it in that language. And if your partner or another member of the family speaks the other language, they can read the story in that language. So it is nice to have a book in the languages spoken in our family. If our children read better in the school language, it could also be a nice way to read the book together. We can, for example, read in our home language and let our children read the book in the school language. We enjoy the same story together, but can read the book in different languages. And then when I say this, I don't mean that you need to read exactly the same thing. So your child reads the version in the school language and you read the version in your language. But it can be, for example, on each page you choose who is going to read, and whichever language you prefer to read in, you read in that language. So it could be a bilingual story as well. When you have 2 languages in a book, it can also be the opportunity to highlight a few differences between languages and to raise awareness about linguistic differences. And with some books, you can go even further. In Marisol, MacDonald doesn't match, for example, you can see that the text isn't always in the same order. It's not always English at the top and Spanish at the bottom. On some of the pages, Spanish is at the top and English is at the bottom. It might be due to the space that is available on the page to fit English and Spanish. But you can also start talking about hierarchy of languages. Is one language supposed to always be at the top and the other one at the bottom? And on this page, for example, you could just simply say, normally we read from left to right, top to bottom. So do you want to read the English first, which is on the left, or the Spanish first, which is at the top? That way we can remind our children that the order is not necessarily imposed, that they can choose to start with whichever language they want. There are many bilingual books out there that can be amazing starting point to talk about multilingualism and that reflect our children's experiences. However, when it comes to reading with our children at home for pleasure, I would like to add that it is important to let our children read the language they prefer. We're raising multilingual children with the aim to provide them more choices in life. And these bilingual books offer our children the opportunity to access the story from more than one of the languages they know. So leaving the choice of the language to read to them helps promote the benefits of multilingualism. However, if we impose one language, we lose the purpose of having a book written in two languages.
Bilingual books for preteens and teenagers are pretty rare compared to those in the previous year groups. Most probably because children of that age are supposed to be independent readers and pick the books they like in the target language or languages. But like Yoshito mentioned before, it can be incredibly motivating to see our languages in the same book in alternating ways. Now, when our children grow up with two or more languages from very early on and learn to read in them simultaneously, they might not find it so important to see both languages portrayed in the same book. But if the two languages of the book are one of their more dominant ones and one they are starting to learn, it is way more motivating for children to improve their new language. Now, what can also be appealing for preteens and teens are graphic novels. In Yoshito's, they can even fill in blanks in their home language or the language of their choice. We link to Yoshito's graphic novel in the description. For experienced readers, bilingual books represent the opportunity to learn the additional language themselves on their own terms and at their own pace. When we got, for example, Adam Beck's book, 28 bilingual English, Spanish fairy tales and fables, short, simple stories for language learners of all ages, my children reactivated the Spanish they had learned at school and enjoyed the read much more because they could self-check what certain words would mean directly in the book on the other page. And I must confess that it was an easy and fun way for me too to reactivate my Spanish. Adam Beck's book also comes with an audio file, which makes it even more appealing to learners as they can simultaneously train their reading comprehension and listening skills in the target language. But the older our children are, the more they want and need to decide independently what kind of text and in what language they want to read it. They will read it at a faster pace in the school language for obvious reasons, and their vocabulary will be broader in the school language. I mentioned this in another video, actually. So chances are high that they will pick the book in the language they read faster. But if that book or a similar one is also available in a bilingual version, it becomes a great tool for independent learning of the other language. In fact, in some schools, bilingual books are used to make learning the new language easier for the reasons I just mentioned. Now, one word of warning though, there are many translations out there that are not so good. Bisogna dire un po' pane al pane qui. We need to be honest here. I have read bilingual books that were translated literally, like with Google Translate from the early 2000s. And this can be very demotivating for a more advanced reader. Therefore, I suggest using bilingual books that have been translated by professionals who are aware of the differences across the languages. This is easier to find for our youngest ones, as the terms and syntax structure is usually on the easy or easier side. For the skilled reader, though, who uses a bilingual book to start reading in an additional language, it is really important that the key terms and concepts are maintained, that the syntax structure is not too elaborated, but the text is still compelling in both languages, and this is not an easy task. This is my very personal critique towards bilingual books. In order for them to be easily translatable across languages, the message in the original language can become quite flat or too easy. I've translated several books and learning materials, and I know that a great part of the original message or feeling for the situation can get lost in translation. This is why I personally suggest that multilinguals who have, for example, reached the level B2 should rather pick a book in the target language. But we parents, caregivers, and teachers, we can help our preteens, teens, and other adults who are starting to learn or to read in a new language to find good quality bilingual books. A little tip: If you search the internet looking for bilingual books, you will mainly find English, Spanish books. So I suggest you search them up in your language, like zweisprachige Bücher, livre bilingue, livre bilingue, tweetalige boeken. I will share some sites in the description.
A couple of weeks ago, Ute and I were invited by Radio World to take part in a panel discussion to talk about reading with our multilingual children. If you're interested in this, I will leave the link in the description below.
So let's sum it up. Bilingual books are great for parents of toddlers and preschool children as we don't need to translate on the go. Bilingual books are helpful for the emergent readers and primary school children in general who are learning an additional language because when they see both their languages in the same book and they can be more motivated to learning to read in both of them. For older children and adults, bilingual books can be a great tool to learn a new language independently. I personally am now reading this book that my daughter bought me, so I have no excuses to not learn how to read in Korean.
Just for your information, the books we share in this video are generally books we enjoy. We do not receive any compensation for mentioning them. And as you know, Ute and I are running this channel to bring you the best ideas, tips, and resources to help you foster your languages in a fun and compelling way. You can also find loads of ideas in our books, The Toolbox for Multilingual Families and The Parent's Guide to Raising Multiliterate Children. You can find them both on Amazon, and we're going to leave the links in the description below. If you haven't done so yet, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to be notified whenever we publish a new video. And as always, have
Have
fun
fun
with
with your languages.